Should I use this microphone? I suppose
You should, please.
Yeah,
please.
okay. Is it turned on?
Yep.
All right. I'm not sure if I'm going to stand or sit for this, so I'll just try standing and see how it goes, all right? So, my presentation is kind of different from Andrew's. I guess what I'm going to talk about is this project that I've been working on, it seems like for years, but it has sort of taken on a bit of a life of its own, right? The inspiration from the project came from Deep, which is a virtual reality project you guys probably have heard about, and a lot of you have experienced. So, as part of Deep, I started developing AI for creature behaviors. And I found this really, really enjoyable, and I found I kind of got lost into this world of programming creatures, particularly over the last 6 months or so. And so this is basically just about, the journey of how I came to make these creatures, and I'm going to show you some of the creatures that I've made and some of the techniques that I've used. And basically, at the end, I'm going to talk about what it means to program creatures. Yes?
You pressed record, right?
I have pressed record.
Sweet. It's a worthwhile question.
It is. I have definitely pressed record. Okay. So I guess, that's what my presentation is going to be about, okay? Specifically, I'm going to talk about what it means to program creatures in VR and what it has meant to me over the last 6 months, okay? So I entitled my talk, A Journey into the Deep Heart of Code, right? So, so about me, I started programming when I was quite a young boy. My dad bought me this computer called an MSX in 1983. And the interesting thing about the MSX is that there weren't very many games for it. So in order to do anything useful with the MSX, you had to write programs. And back in the early 80s, very often you'd get magazines and type programs in, and then I'd end up modifying the programs, writing things myself, writing little games, little graphics programs. This little program here that I'm showing you is a program called Danny, and I teach my students now, as part of my OOP course, how to write this. It's a little chatbot, really interesting chatbot. All it does is it strings words together based on the words that you've previously said to it. So as you interact with it more and more, it learns your language, and it comes back to you. I was fascinated by this program as a kid, this idea that computers could think and be autonomous. And eventually I worked in the software industry, got my degree in computer science, and eventually ended up working in DIT. And even though I knew nothing about how to program games, I wanted to teach people how to program games. So it was a rather ambitious goal. And myself and my colleague Hugh McAtamney back in 2006, we started the game stream as part of the computer science degree that we were running at the time. So I feel I have probably taught so many different technologies over the years. When I started teaching this course, it was DirectX 9 fixed function pipeline, and I got some books and taught myself DirectX 9 fixed function pipeline programming over the summer. And then after a few years, I figured all this stuff was really out of date. And then XNA came along, and I ported all my code to XNA and found XNA much more expressive than DirectX 9 fixed function pipeline programming in C++. And then XNA, of course, became obsolete. I ended up rewriting this game engine called BGE, which is still used to teach the game engine subject in DIT. And this was a sort of a game engine that I wrote myself in C++. It had scripting. It would compile to lots of different platforms, including Linux on the Mac. It had support for VR. It was really cool, and I loved writing this. And even I wrote a game in it, which is called The Power of the Mushroom, which I wrote in a 48-hour game jam. It's kind of inspired by sort of psychedelic experiences. It was a VR game written entirely in C++ in a custom game engine, and it's about 10 minutes of gameplay. It's all there, it works, and it's all brilliant. So that was really good fun, At the moment, obviously, I'm teaching Unity. So even though BGE and C++ is still the first semester, then I kind of discovered Unity, and I started programming in Unity and trying to teach people how to program Unity. Along the way, I developed a lot of game AI code, right? So mostly stuff like steering behaviors, state machines, and I did lots of demos in lots of different languages of how to program steering behaviors. The last sort of demo I did, I ported all my steering behaviors code to Unity. And I had done some really nice video tutorials on how to do steering behaviors. I actually open sourced all my steering behaviors code in the idea that maybe somebody somewhere would want to use my code. Nobody ever did, but my video got lots of views. And then Owen, of course, was making Deep, and I had done all these beautiful steering behavior simulations where I had little things swimming around that looked like fishes. And I asked Owen, did he want to have fish in Deep? And he said yes. And this was a great time for me because this is probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. So, from having never made a game before, I got to work on this big, meaningful project, which was going to help people to relieve anxiety. It was a VR project, and it got to go to lots of festivals. Already Deep has been in The Guardian and lots of other newspapers and stuff. And there I was, having never written a game before, suddenly working on this really cool project. So most of you know what Deep is all about. It's sort of a meditative and psychoactive, we call it a VR experience. Use a breathing sensor. And I took my Boyd code that I had written in Unity that I was really proud of, that I was using for teaching, and I put it into the Unity project. So these Boyds that I had written, if you know what Boyds are, this guy called Craig Reynolds came up with the idea for Boyds back in the 80s, and they're used in lots of video games and lots of movies to do sort of crowd simulations and things where you have lots of things interacting together. So it's based on the idea of autonomous agents, right? And I had handcrafted all of these Boyds based on books that I had read about Boyds, and I put them all into Deep. And my code had been ported from, books and C++ and X and A, and then finally into Unity. So I had loads of really complicated ways of doing stuff. For example, I had my own raycasting library that I wrote myself, including an obstacle avoidance steering behavior as well, which is like several pages of C# code. Now you can write it in like about 5 lines in Unity, of course, because you just do a raycast. It had its own physics. It had its own pathfinding, its own A-star and everything. If you ever want to watch that video, I'll share the link with you. So I made the Boyds for Deep, right? And I made a little wiggle animation, and I put all of this stuff into Deep. And I thought it looked great, but there was lots of bugs. Number one, the Boyds used to crash through the scenery a fair bit, which wasn't always their fault because there was lots of holes in the geometry. And then also the performance was just okay, I was able to simulate maybe a couple of hundred of them, and then the frame rate would really drop. Nevertheless, this was the first build of Deep that we showed at the Amaze Festival. So I was really proud, here was my game. Amazing feeling for me to see people queuing up to play something and actually looking at my Boyds and go, wow, they're really cool. So I'm going to show you a little video of the first version of Deep that we built so you can see what the Boyds look like. They look pretty sweet. I think they look sweet. You can tell me yourselves what you think they look like. I'm going to skip forward because these videos are all quite long, so I may just skip through some of the videos to find the good bits. There you go, there's the Boyds. We put these really long trails on them. And also they had a little wiggle animation that I wrote. I wrote the wiggle animation just using harmonic motion on the head and harmonic motion on the tail to basically flip the head around and the tail around. And they more or less avoided the scenery, and they did some really nice schooling behaviors, and people really liked them. So that was the first version of Deep that we showed at the Amaze Festival. And that's what the Boyds look like. That was what my AIs look like. They would do separation, cohesion, and alignment behaviors, and also a random sort of movement behavior called wander. They also avoided the scenery. And when you combine those behaviors together, you get this sort of emergence in schooling in Boyds, and it's called flocking. So they look like flocks of birds or schools of fish, So that was the first version of Deep, and that was the first version of my Boyds, right? Was that okay? You like them? All right, I'll skip on and show you the next thing then, okay? So there was my Boyds, really happy with the way everything was going. Here I was, a VR developer from nothing. And working with this artist called Nikki Schmidt, and we wanted to put other creatures into the scene. So Nikki sent me this dolphin. And what we wanted to do with the dolphin was we wanted to basically animate the dolphin. Owen was really impressed with my harmonic motion. How harmonic motion works? Harmonic motion is like you take a sine wave which goes between -1 and +1, you multiply it by a number, and you use that number to do something. So I use that number basically to rotate the head. Interestingly, harmonic motion is the way most things in the real world move. So if you think of a pendulum or an arm swinging or legs moving, they're all harmonic motions. So harmonic motion can be used to simulate lots of kind of natural movements. So actually it was a really good technique. I didn't use the Unity animation framework at all. I basically wrote my own animations in C#, right? So I wanted to animate this guy, and Owen said, okay, well, we don't have an animator, you figure it out. So I figured, yeah, okay, I know how to do harmonic motion. I'll put harmonic motion on each of the different segments and it'll be great. As it turns out, it was horribly difficult to do and really, really unstable. And it was really frustrating to try and program my animations in this way. But eventually I got an animation working by programming, the transform directly using harmonic motion. And then I applied some behaviors to it as well. And I'm going to show you, this was sort of like the second version of Deep that we made, right? So I had to animate and move this thing, harmonic motion. I thought the animation looked just okay, despite the fact that I spent what seemed like weeks on it. I probably could have done it much easier by using the Unity animator. The fish looked okay, and they performed much better in the second build. And this was the build that we showed at CineKid in Amsterdam. So it had one sort of critical bug, which I'm going to tell you about rather than show you, because I'll show you the creatures and you'll see what they look like. These are the Boyds swimming around now. Now the Boyds have lovely 3D models attached. So this is what they look like in the scene. They're actually quite natural looking, and people really, really like them. They swim around. Hopefully I've picked a good shot. Maybe I might skip forward to find a better shot to show you what they look like. I think I should have really put some timing in. Yeah, you can see them swimming around. They swim around together like this. So they're procedurally generated, procedurally animated, and they've got these lovely trails coming off them, and they look quite fish-like at this point. Some kind of issues with performance came up in the City Kid build because we were going to the DK2 at this stage, you know? And there's the dolphins with their harmonic motion. They also use the steering behavior called offset pursuit, so they always try and stay in formation. They're okay. They're not brilliant. They're not perfect. This is like the evolution of the boids, you know? Did you see them? Okay, that's what my dolphins look like with the harmonic motion animation on them. And they're basically on a path, so they'll swim around on a little path. Let's see if we can catch them again. Oh yeah, there we go. They're okay. I mean, I was pretty pleased with them. They were the boys that we used, and that was the animation that was in the build that we showed at CD Kid. Alright, so then came new creatures. We wanted to do 2 new sets of creatures. We wanted to do these, which are like a school of rayfish. And we wanted to do this guy, which is basically a sort of a whale-like creature. And this has like 5 or 6 different segments here, and it has independent fins. These guys have a number of different segments, and I wanted to try and make their animation similar, but like the models don't exactly fit. They're not exactly like whales and rayfish. They're like sci-fi whales and rayfish, so I wanted to try and animate them. So it was time to come up with a whole load of new techniques, right? Basically, everything I had done so far was okay, but, you know, it was time to up my game a bit, right? So the first thing I came up with is a harmonic steering behavior. So the harmonic steering behavior is like a harmonic motion combined with a buoyed behavior, right? So what I was trying to do basically is get the buoy to do something that looked like a fish movement through the water. So there's a harmonic motion. Basically what happens is a point is projected in front of the creature, and then that point is on a harmonic, so it's going to swing around like this, and then the creature seeks that point as it moves through the water. So that causes the creature to do this sort of like fish-like motion. The next thing I got was this spine animation, and I figured this out by contacting this guy, Lear Al-Absented, who's the guy who made Ocean Rift. If you ever played Ocean Rift, there are really, really beautiful creature animations, and I asked him, could he tell me how he did his creature animations, and he says, okay, this spine animation thing on Unity, you can download it from the asset store, it's free, look at the code, and you'll figure out how to do spine animations. So this was my next thing. I also came up with a steering behavior based on Perle noise, right, which I felt was quite fish-like. So Perle noise, you know, if you actually plot Perle noise, it looks like a sine wave, but the frequency and amplitude is changing all the time. So you get this sort of motion. People use it for doing terrains and for clouds and stuff. So I made a steering behavior based on Perle noise, and that would cause the fish to sort of swim over this way and then swim this way and then back again and sort of oscillate. And you can parameterize it based on how much sort of steering you want and that sort of thing. And I also multi-threaded all the buoys. So this was a huge technical challenge for me, right? This is bringing in all my computer science knowledge, right? So I multi-threaded all the AI for the buoys, right? Because we needed to get like 150 of them into the scene, you know, and I could only simulate 10 or 20 and still get 90 FPS. So I multi-threaded all their AI. Multi-threading in Unity, if you've ever done it, is really difficult because the transform object is not thread safe, which means that if you want to do stuff like calculate new positions or new orientations, you got to do all of that on the thread, and then every now and again copy all that data from the thread back into Unity. So in the update method you do all of that. So you end up with the two things being slightly out of sync, but because I have this chaotic system anyway, it didn't really matter. And this is the build that we showed at the Tribeca Film Festival, which was last summer, wasn't it? Last summer. So this was last summer, and this had all the new creatures in it. I'm going to show you a little video of that now. So these are the best ones so far, right? This time we've got lots of different species of creatures interacting together. I want to show you something. This happens when you program AI. Watch this. I found this amazing. Did you see the little fish? Look at the little fish, right? Actually, did you just see it? Was it just there? Okay, now oh, look at this guy. He's swimming into the cave here. Well, okay, now he's gone off into the back of the cave. Watch what happens. I found this really, really incredible when I saw it for the first time. So this fish has got wander behavior on it, which is based on Craig Reynolds' original wander behavior from his 1986 paper. The fish wanders into the cave, hangs around in the cave for a little while, looking pretty natural looking. I decide to head off in this direction. Later on I'll head back into the cave and watch what the fish is doing. This is when you make AI things and they do things and you look at them and you can't really think, wow, is that alive? Did I make that? Oh, I head back into the cave. So what's happened here is the fishes just wandered around in the cave for a little while and then decided, hey, I'm fed up with the cave, I'm going to go for a wander out. I found that incredible when I knew my creatures could do that. They just do these sort of emergent things. I didn't program it to wander around the cave and come out, I programmed it to wander. Just found its way in there, had a little look around and then came out again all by itself. So these are called the cave sardines, and these are basically boids, but you know, similar to the big schools of boids. Okay, I'm going to fast forward here a little bit. You can see just above there, that is a school of rayfish staying in formation. They'll go out of formation to avoid obstacles and to avoid the player, but then they always find their way back into the formation. Because of how the boids work, you know, all the behaviours are summed up and prioritised. So I'm going to skip forward a little bit to show you some of the other creatures, because there's a lot of sort of terrain stuff here. Okay, I want to show you these. These are the big boids, the schooling boids. These are incredible, right? One thing I found very non-deterministic about these are frame rate dependent, the behavior that you get. And it's not due to the time deltas, it's due to how often they get updated. It's actually quite hard to explain. These are the new animations on the dolphins. So this is using the thing I got from Lear Alcentad, how to do a spine animation. That's the harmonic motion, and that's also the noise-based wander. So they sort of wander around left and right, they swim around quite realistically, I think, even though the fins don't animate, you know. So this was something in these creatures, I wanted the fins to animate, but the model doesn't have separate fins. All right, let's skip forward here. The boids are beautiful, but not only are the boids beautiful, look at the way the boids kind of look like fireworks. There's a certain kind of unnaturalness to their movements, which I think is really beautiful. And you'll see a little bit more of them later. And then out of the depths, you see this beautiful creature here, the whale. Look at how natural its movement is. This is all coded by hand in C#. There's no Unity animation here, and it's all emergent. It does different things every time you play it. The other thing you might notice is that the fins are animated as well. So I discovered that I could synchronize the harmonic motion on the fins with the harmonic motion on the head to make it look like the fins are pushing the creature through the water. And it does really cool emergent things as well. So my creatures do really, really cool backflips. Sometimes they'll come up, they'll do a spin around like this, and then they level out. One of the reasons why they do that is because I don't use rigid bodies. I wrote my own physics simulation and my own integration function. So I'm able to program things like that, like basically level out after you turn. And then these lovely boids doing beautiful things. All right, I'm going to skip forward, okay? So lots of pictures here of deep just to show you what it looks like. There's the ray family, which are some of my favorite creatures. Wow. I'll skip forward really quickly now because there's lots of stuff I want to show you guys. Okay, so the next steps. That was last summer. The next step then for me, because I want to bring this project forward, was to have lots more different creatures and a bigger variety of creatures. So I decided to take all the stuff I had done for Deep and basically refactor the whole lot, okay? So number one thing, as programmers do, we like doing that, okay? Basically everything I did was wrong, I want to do it all again from scratch. So I wrote the start of this new project at the end of last summer called Forms. And I wanted to incorporate all of the stuff I had learned, especially from teaching game AI to my students. My students are always teaching me stuff. Hey, you know there's a better way you can do that. So I wanted to try and incorporate all of that. So I made all of my behaviors into separate game components, and I wrote really nice gizmos for them, which made them really, really easy to get a behavior working just by feel. I mean, I could play the thing, adjust a little slider, see what effect it has, and then I get a nicer feel for the creature. Iterate quickly was one of my goals as well. So I didn't want to wait around for the artist to make 3D models. I wanted to be basically able to construct a big variety of different shaped creatures, try out different behaviors on them really quickly. So I didn't want to wait to have models made, okay? So I wrote a little framework for instantiating creatures from prefabs. And also, just for fun last year, I wrote this like infinite tile-based Perl and Noise 3D environment, and I wanted to basically populate this with my creatures. And I had this idea that I was going to make an infinite world full of infinite things, and I'm very close to having that. So here's how my new framework works, right? So there's basically a boid. You attach a boid to your game object, and then you attach a number of these handcrafted and tuned behaviors, right? So they're all written from scratch. Well, not from scratch. They're all based on books and the evolution of these behaviors over years. The ones that I kept and the ones that I use most frequently are seek, arrive, formation, which is the variation on offset pursuit with some of my own tweaks in it to get them to do kind of nice, turning and stuff like that. There's a jitter wander, which is Craig Reynolds' original one. Noise wander, separation, cohesion, alignment, constraint, obstacle avoidance, which is really cool. A lot of tweaking to get them to avoid obstacles in Unity. And then a school, so you can basically group all the voids into a school and they know about each other. So they all draw really nice gizmos, and it makes it really easy to get a nice behavior just through feeling. You can program your creature really quickly. You can see what it's going to look like. You adjust the numbers, and live you can see what effect that has on its behavior. There's lots of nice optimizations to make the code fast and to make it optimal for 90 FPS in VR. So there's coroutines all over the place. For example, all my creatures are doing like 5 ray casts, but they only do them maybe once or twice a second to check to see if there's anything in the way. That's how the avoid and steering behavior works. There are lots of sliders on them all, okay? Some badly named classes, badly named fields, absolutely no testing. Void AI runs on a separate thread. So most of this stuff is done out of necessity rather than planning. But a lot of the stuff, because I had iterated, a lot of the stuff I put a lot of thought into how I was going to design it. So there's a lot of interfaces and different classes for doing different things. There's a very finely crafted integration function incorporating some special magic. So the integration function is the thing that combines all the behaviors together, prioritizes them, cuts off calculating behaviors if one exceeds a priority, and it also does stuff like leveling out after the void's turn and stuff like that. I say it's finely crafted. What I really mean is it's spent 2 or 3 pages of C# code with lots of code that could probably do with a really good refactor. So then I wrote another load of classes which I call animators. And these are things that you attach to the void that synchronize with what the void is doing. So there's a fin animator, which animates fins. It's a harmonic animation driven by the harmonic steering behavior. The spine animator, it's the thing that animates each of the parts of the spine. A tail animator, so that's basically tied to the velocity or the force or acceleration of the void. A nose animator, because I wanted to make a thing which is like a tardigrade, I think it's called. It's a creature with a nose that comes in and out like this. And that's a scaling animator based on the harmonic. All of this is coded in C# rather than done in the Unity animator for lots of reasons. I mean, I guess there's this idea of procedural generation and stuff, but also because I just love code. I absolutely love writing code. It's one of my great joys in life. I'm going to talk about like what it means to write code in VR at the end of my talk. But for me, I just much prefer to write things in code. I think in code. I think how am I going to lay things out? Like, what's the for loop? What's the classes I need to make this thing? That's the way I always think. I don't think in visual terms. I think in code. And then I wrote lots of generators. So generators are a thing from instantiating things from prefabs, right? I don't really want to know how to do 3D modeling, okay? People keep saying, why don't you just learn Blender? I don't want to learn Blender. I just don't want to. It's not the way my brain works, okay? I'm not a visual person. I'm a code person, right? I much prefer to think about how I could generate a thing from code rather than how I can actually craft it using a tool. I wrote stuff like a creature generator, which instantiates creatures and scales them based on a sine wave function. Tentacles creature generator, which lays things out in circles. A school generator, which instantiates things randomly in a sphere. A formation generator generates things which are going to fly in a formation and puts them into positions. And at the moment, I'm writing a generator, and I like the anthropomorphism of these names. It's called Mother. Everyone should write a class called Mother. Mother is the thing that's going to instantiate all my creatures in my infinite world. And it's going to basically make sure that there's always creatures around the player, and as the player moves through the environment, it will put them all into a little cache and move them around. That's just the way I like to think about things like that. So I'm going to do a demo, okay? And I'm going to show you a variety of the different creatures that I have made so far with forms. And if you will indulge me, I'm going to put a soundtrack on it because personally, I feel music for me is really, really important. I always listen to music when I'm code. I find it really inspires me and motivates me to code better, okay? So I'm going to play some music from this electronic music producer called Kilowatts, and I'm going to show you a demo of forms and just some of the creatures, right? I'll probably turn that down a little bit just so there's a little bit of backgroundy. This is going to make the demo way more epic, I promise, right? So, This is forms. Some of you may have seen this video already, but I'm going to just talk through these creatures, and these are all made from code. There's no 3D models. There's one 3D model in the scene. That 3D model is a 3D model of a dodecahedron. Apart from that, everything else the scene is empty. Okay, so I'm going to sit down for this maybe, or maybe I'll just turn that down. Put that down. So first of all, these are my jellyfish creatures. So these are made using the tentacle creature generator, the spine animator. I'm trying to combine all my different, things that I've made together into like different types of creatures. And I can also make schools of jellyfish really easily. And then that's one of my schools there, okay? So you can see the fin animator, the harmonic on the heads. These are all swimming around in formations. They'll also avoid the player, avoid the obstacles, avoid the environment. Ooh, let's check this guy out. This guy's kind of loosely modeled on a rayfish. But I want you to take a second and just, I'm not running at full FPS here because I'm trying to screen cam this and capture it at the same time. Oh, I should just look at this screen. Look at how epic that creature is. Look at how beautiful and oozing its movement is. Okay, so there's that guy. Let's see what else we've got in here. See if we've got any tentacle things. Alright. There's loads of these guys in the scene. These guys are mutants. So this was an octopus that went wrong. But I really like it. I really like it. Look at it. There's a few things happening here. There's the tentacle creature generator, which is creating the creature. There's the spine animator, which is animating each of the fins. There's a harmonic on the thing, which is causing them to sort of wave around. And then every now and again, there's a little coroutine running that adjusts the frequency and amplitude. It gives it a real anthropomorphic quality. You think it's getting angry, or, it's peaceful. So then let's check out these blue creatures. I just call these the big blue creatures. They're giant. In VR, these are absolutely huge. All made from one dodecahedron model. So something else just to observe, there's a lot of detail in here which is hopefully going to just go straight over your heads because you think it's so cool looking. The fins are independently animated, right? When it's turning right, it uses the right fin, and left, it'll use the left fin. Also, you notice that hopefully it looks like the fins are driving the movement. So the fins push the creature. Lots of octopus creatures. These octopuses were a great success. So the difference between the octopus and the jellyfish is just that I start them off at a different angle. So the fins all on the octopus creatures are all sort of slightly offset from each other. So let's check out some more. I think there's a nicer octopus over here with much more dramatic movements, just because this has just got different starting parameters, so that probably has different starting angles and stuff. So it's really relaxing, just to watch these creatures. Now let's see if I can find the mermaid. There's a mermaid in here. It's over here, I think. Yeah, these guys I call the mermaids. So you should check out my video as well, because my video is recorded at 1080p and it's on 60 FPS on my really big gaming PC. So there's no lag or latency and everything looks really smooth. Okay, we'll check out some of the small creatures. These are creatures which are sort of modeled on different types of schools of fish. So I'll show you some of the schools, right? I have two other little schools here. These are the more beautiful of the two schools. There's, I think there's 100 boys in this school. So these are implementing loads of different behaviors. Separation, cohesion, alignment, wander, scene avoidance, and also fleeing from the player. And all their behaviors are combined together. When you combine lots of the behaviors together, you get emergence. So you get things that you don't predict. I never programmed this lovely fireworking behavior. They just do it when you combine the behaviors together. And then every now and again they'll do this cool thing. And this is amazing. In VR, this is absolutely incredible. This is an astonishing feeling when they all swim at you like this. I'll show you one or two creatures, and then maybe I will go back to my talk. Oh, hang on! I got to show you the school of rayfish. There's a really cool school of rayfish, and actually, there's one other behavior I want to show you guys. Oh yeah, look at these guys. These are the sort of tardigrade inspired creatures with the noses that pop out. They feed. Okay, let's check out the schools. Let's check out the school of rayfish. And then I'm going to show you something amazing. As if you haven't seen enough amazing stuff already. I think the school of rayfish is over here. So I had the idea because I was often bringing people back to my house, particularly after big club nights in Dublin. We come back to the house and do VR. And I highly recommend it. You know, it's a really cool thing to do. Group of friends, beanbag. Okay, I can't find the school of rayfish. I'll show you on this guy instead. Every creature that has one of these little dodecahedrons models on the back, you can take control of, right? This works really well with the Vive controllers, and I'll explain how the Vive controllers work. With the Vive controllers, they work like jetpacks, so you can fly around the scene. And then when you hop on one of these creatures and enter one of these sphere things, you take control of the creature and you travel on its back. So now I'm swimming around this procedurally generated environment, or I'm traveling around on the back of this giant creature. Okay, the frame rate is terrible because I'm camming this as I'm going. But normally, you know, I get like 90 FPS in VR here. I can control the creature. And I have to say, this feels astonishing in VR. It feels absolutely astonishing. You use the two Vive controllers and hold them out like this. I take the average of the two Vive controllers. So as you move your hands, the creature's head moves and you're able to control the creature in VR. You can literally dance as the creature is traveling around the scene. You can follow its movements. It's an amazing feeling. So I'll disconnect from the creature. And once I disconnect from the creature, actually I should just show you this. How the behaviors are combined together means that even when you're controlling the creature's still got its own idea of what it wants to do. So you can't tell the creature, for example, to crash into the ground. I can drive it into the ground. And it'll go downwards. But it won't crash, because the creature still has its scene avoidance behavior, which gets combined with this behavior. The two of them get sung together. You know, the scene avoidance behavior's got a higher priority, so it'll take priority. If you try and crash the creature in the ground, the creature will say, hey, I don't want to do that. So I'll disconnect, right? There is a beautiful family of rayfish which you can also take control of. It's really cool. But maybe I'll just show you one other thing, okay? And if I find the rayfish family, I'll show you before I quit the demo, yeah? Let me show you the giant creature in the sky. Where's it gone? See, my creature has brought me on a journey. And now I can't find my way home. So I'm just going to restart it so we can see it. So yeah, there's all these creatures. The ray family is there somewhere, but look at this thing. Sometimes I like just as an experiment, you know, this is why I was asking Andrew about prototyping, because everything in this is like prototypes. I decided just what would happen like if I made a huge creature, you know, a huge big tentacle creature, like one of my mutant creatures, but absolutely massive. And I put it into the scene, and it is just really beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful things I think I've ever made. I just love the way it moves. I don't know what it is. I have definitely seen it before. When I saw it, I recognized it. But again, in VR, you can get right inside it. You know, you can get right up to it and watch its movements. The movements are all based on harmonic motions and stuff, so they're just kind of oozing and flowing and very natural. There's loads of lerping and things going on so that nothing happens suddenly, or, you know, everything is sort of smooth and sort of like organic looking. You know, even though the creature itself is not a natural creature, it's like a sci-fi creature, you know, or a Lovecraft creature. But I like this idea of the tentacles sort of like hugging the thing in the middle. Lots of people look at it, and lots of people try it in VR, and lots of people get different feelings from it, you know. I feel like it's really sort of like, you know, I like the sort of hugging feeling that it has. Okay, there's my creatures, right? There's a beautiful array family in there, but you know what? You can watch the video, or you can try it yourselves, right? Because otherwise, this talk will go on forever, and there is a few things I want to talk about, okay? So lots of pictures of the creatures, because I'm really proud of how they look. Even though they're all made by programmers, you know, in other words, programmer art. They're cubes and spheres. Everything is geometric. I know nothing about color. I'm learning about color as I go here, you know. This is just some pictures from the creature. So I want to just kind of conclude my talk with some conclusions, right? Because this is really how I feel, okay? And this is the important thing, okay? So I do lots of running, and I feel I have a very deep connection to my own physical body because I've been doing yoga all my life, right? Do yoga every day. My practice for doing coding is I put on some music, do maybe 15-20 minutes of yoga, maybe longer, code for 45 minutes, 10-15 minutes of yoga, code for 45 minutes, 10-15 minutes of yoga. I get into a really deep flow state. I can't describe it, you know. Lots of people get into a flow state when they code. For me, it's incredibly deep. I don't want any interruptions. If somebody knocks at the door, I hear any sound from outside, it's gone. But when I'm in the zone, it's hard to describe. It's really hard to describe. It's such a weird feeling because I'm out running and I think of these ideas, and then I come back, the ideas come out, they come out this code, and then I put on the VR headset, and then there's a thing in front of me. That is absolutely an astonishing feeling. That is an astonishing feeling. The idea that from abstract thought, from code, you can make an actual thing just blows me away. And what I wanted to share with you is I feel I've had such deep emotions in doing this thing. All the deep emotions, right? Making those creatures. For example, that bug I mentioned earlier, for example, which was the bug in the harmonic motion that I had on those dolphins. What used to happen is we would start the game, loads of people would come up to play it. After about 15 minutes, right, one segment for the dolphin would separate from the other segments because the animation wasn't stable, right? So I felt really, really sad, you know, profound sadness. I've actually cried many times in coding all of this stuff. I have lots of self-doubt as well. I'm a lecturer. I don't make video games. You guys all make video games and work in the industry. I don't. I teach people, and I code for joy and for pleasure because I enjoy it. And I teach, hopefully, people to enjoy coding and make things and be creative with it. I've also experienced the deepest happiness that I really can't express. I don't know how to express it. I feel so happy when I'm making these things. It's an amazing feeling. And I've cried equally, for example, the very first time I hopped on the back of one of those creatures and it actually took me around the scene with bugs. I cried. I cried with fucking joy. I couldn't believe I had made something so fucking immensely beautiful. And I've also felt lots of astonishment as well, right? This is where I code. You know, I'm lucky enough to have a really, really cool room. I can do stand-up coding at the desk here. I got my yoga space in the middle, you know, it's really lovely. What I'm going to conclude with is just a few thoughts, right, on what it means to program creatures in VR. For me, the very idea of working on a VR project is astonishing. If I think back to my childhood and programming on the MSX, to think I can take those things that I did as a child and actually make this immense, you know, futuristic sci-fi VR thing, for me, that's just astonishing, right? Also, Unity, right? I've programmed lots of different things. I have programmed loads. I programmed this really successful app called TunePal. It's got like 30,000 users, get 1,000 music searches a day. Programming in Unity is so enjoyable. I feel I really express myself. I feel that this project represents my deepest inner thoughts and my feelings. Huh? Okay. So I conceive of environments and creatures in my head, mostly when I'm out running, and then I come back and code them. Code the ideas, they become real things. The things I make are beautiful to me. And I look at them and I feel such a profound sense of happiness that I've made something that even if I think it's beautiful, it's just amazing for me. They're alive. I iterate and polish stuff until I love the feeling of it. So for example, the way you control the creatures, that has been polished and polished and polished until it feels really perfect. It's so smooth when you connect with them, orientates your head using a lerp. When you disconnect them, it's really beautifully smooth when you disconnect. In VR, it feels incredible. Even my mistakes and gizmos are beautiful. So if you ever write gizmos in Unity and look at Unity, sometimes I find myself just becoming quiet and looking at the gizmos. I think they're gorgeous. I take deep satisfaction in appreciating what I've made, right? There's a game called Abzu. Have you all played Abzu? There's a mode in Abzu which I found really profoundly affected me. It's the meditation mode. And in Abzu, what the guys have clearly done is they said, we've made a beautiful thing. Now you just sit here and look at our beautiful thing. So they put a mode in their game. All you do is sit there and look at the beautiful thing. I find that really inspiring. You know, the idea that you can just make a thing that's beautiful. That's the only good. You know, that's all. It's just beautiful. I'm learning about lots of interesting things like color and movement through experience and feeling through actually making this thing. Listening to lots of amazing electronic music. I don't know how, me personally, I can't code without listening to amazing and powerful and inspiring and uplifting electronic music. I have a really nice playlist which I can share with you of all my programming music. I absolutely love working on Unity, and I love working on forums, and I absolutely love Unity. When I look back at my journey in making these creatures, and I look back at the videos that I made and how I felt at the time, I realize now that every single one of those videos represents my deepest inner thoughts and feelings at the time. It represents everything that I put my whole heart into at the time. And I feel I found my voice in code. And then finally, to conclude, I feel that this is definitely the best time in my life. And part of it is for making this, lots of other things as well. So just to finish with some inspiring quotes, remember everybody, we are the life force power of the universe with manual dexterity and two cognitive minds, and we have the power to choose moment by moment who we want to be in the world. That's Jill Bolt Taylor, you know, one of my heroes. And then Alan Watts, reality is gorgeous. It's the plenum, the fullness of total joy. What you are basically deep down is the fabric and structure of existence itself. And then my own quote, do what you love and makes you really, really happy. It is good for you to do things that you really, really love and that make you happy. And listen to lots of inspiring music. And that's my talk.